there, folks. Today we're going to look at these statistical measurements, but we're going to look at them from the perspective of doing them on a graphing calculator or using something like Desmos. So we're going to let the computers kind of take over and do these things for us. We'll look at all of the statistical measures that we've talked about, mean, median, that kind of thing. We'll even see like the quartiles back from Algebra 1 and that kind of stuff. We're kind of going to focus on this variance and standard deviation, though. Okay? And so again, when you look at variance and standard deviation, we're measuring how spread out the data is. And this, we're looking at the sample. When we're looking at a sample of data, these are the formulas used. If we want the entire population, remember the entire population formula, we essentially just get rid of this guy. Okay? And I mention that again only to point out that we'll see both of these on the calculator. And when we see them on the calculator versus something like Desmos, when we see them on a graphing calculator, the one labeled as sigma will be for population. The one that we actually want, the sample, will be labeled in a different way. All right, and so it's important to understand that there are two versions of this thing that the calculator is going to present to us. We want the one for samples because we're typically dealing with a sample set of data, not the entire population, okay? And so we just have to understand the difference between these when we start plugging these things into the calculators and to the computer and that kind of stuff, all right? Know that there's two different versions. Know which version that we're looking for here, okay? So once again, looking at this, the same example we already did once. We did some of the things by hand, but now we're going to find the variance and standard deviation. And instead of calculating these using the formula, yes, we could plug it in. We could do it by hand, but really the formula is just kind of a tedious exercise in terms of plugging values in. I'm going to show you how to do this using Desmos graphing calculator this time. And so we're going to punch this into the graphing calculator, and that starts with just kind of copying our values over. So I'm going to jump over to Desmos. So here in Desmos, all we're going to do is we're simply going to punch these data values in. And there's two ways that we can do this, all right? We can decide which operation we want to do. Let's say we want to do the mean in Desmos. We can literally just type in the mean. And then in parentheses, we can type in our data values and just put commas in between. And if I close the parentheses here, as I do this thing, it should, yeah, there we go. You can see that it's calculating this thing as I go. And so as I punch in different values, it changes the mean, obviously, because I'm getting more and more values. And so there it is. That's the same mean we got before. We've calculated it as 122. Now from here, since I already have this punched in, I could go back over here and I could get different things. Instead of the mean, I could get like the median. So there's the median of the data set. But the thing we're after right now is variance and standard deviation. For the variance, we just type in VAR, and there it is. There's the variance. And that's automatically the sample variance. If we want the population, we include a P here for population, and then it will go back to the other formula using just the N instead of the N minus 1. Same thing with standard deviation. The abbreviation for standard deviation is STDEV. Okay, for standard deviation. Once again, that is the default here is the sample. If we want the population, we throw a P on the end of that. The other place that we can get these is if we pull up the calculator menu under functions. You'll see there's like a little stat menu here. You can hit stat. And so if you're ever unsure about what the abbreviations are, right here it is. So there's standard deviation. If I'm back over here, I can just hit this button instead. And it'll do the standard deviation. Now it just threw an extra set of parentheses there for me, okay? So that's one option. The other option here is if I were to jump to this second guy, I could do a table of values, okay? And since this is only one variable statistics, I'm just going to punch in for the X value in this table. So I'm going to punch my data values in here, okay? And so I get all those data values punched in. Let me move that guy. And so what happens here, instead of using this guy, let me get rid of that. Now what I can do is I can say something like, well, I want to do the mean, and I want to do it of that list. Well, that list is X1. So the X1 list, and there it is. It calculates the mean. The advantage of doing it this way is if I have to find multiple things, instead of having to delete this mean, well, I can keep that thing up here and now find the standard deviation of the same list, okay? And there it is. And if I want to see the variance at the same time, I can continue to use those values. So instead of having to retype each time, I can simply kind of have all of these values displayed at once, which is kind of a nice feature. Okay, so we punch the data values in either within the parentheses with commas in between for the thing we're trying to find, whether it's mean, whether it's median, whether it's variance or standard deviation, or I make a list. I make a list and then I say, hey, find the mean of the x values from that list. Find the standard deviation of the x values from the list. Find the variance using the x values from that list, okay? And so here we can see the variance and standard deviation here. Let me put it the other order. So there's the mean, there's the variance, there's the standard deviation. We can round those to a couple decimal places. And again, by default, Desmos will use those sample values. In the functions, you can see right here, standard deviation with a p behind it. That's for population. And then the variance isn't listed, but we can do the same thing with that as well, okay? Depending on the version that we're looking for here, okay? The last really nice thing about punching these into something like Desmos or some kind of other program is that idea that, remember, once again, this had an outlier in it. And this makes it a lot easier to fix those outliers. Once I identify that, because I already have all these calculations done, I just have to come up here into my list and watch this, just delete the outlier. And if I just get rid of that guy, get rid of that entire thing from the list, it's gone now. Now I'm down to 7 values. Notice it automatically adjusts my mean. So now I have a new mean without the outlier. It automatically now adjusts my variance and my standard deviation. And again, anything I want to calculate, it's a lot easier to kind of recalculate these things if I need to eliminate some of those values. Okay?